Keeping the high watch. I'm doing this talk in response to one of our YouTube viewers who asked that I comment on this subject, and I don't know exactly how the viewer sees this, but I will share with you my experience with the phrase, with the term, and what it means, and what it means for us in the new year, what it can mean for us. But I love this photograph of the person standing out. It looks like someplace in Utah to me, because that's exactly what it looks like when you're out in the desert. Beth and I would go out a number of times camping away from the city lights. It's incredible what you see, what you can see with outside of the city. And I think this is kind of an important thing. It's almost like a curtain has come over the cosmos for most people, or for many people. If you live in the city, you can't see this type of thing, and many people live in the city. And even if you have a few lights around you, it's a little bit difficult to see. I have a telescope, and I haven't gotten it out since I've been in Grand Junction, because there's short of going out into the desert, which I could do, but it would take a very long extension cord to get out there. I don't pull it out because we lived in Evergreen at 7,600 feet with no lights, and it was just absolutely a perfect place to look at the sky. But keeping the high watch it's in part the awareness of our environment, that we live in this cosmic setting. We're interested in what life is like in outer space. Is there life out in outer space? And we often forget that we're there. We're part of outer space, whatever outer space is. Outer space is someplace apart from where you stand, but we're getting the technology up to the point where we can look back at ourselves. We can look back at this planet. We can see that we're a blue ball floating in a very large context. And that kind of thing is always inspiring. And when I go out and see the night sky that looks like this, it just reminds me that I'm connected to something very large, something much larger than myself. And to try to comprehend how long all of this has been around is just, it's pretty incredible to think about. And I've been interested lately in looking at some speculation on some lost civilizations, and I'm not talking necessarily about alien life or anything like that, but people that have lived, they have left traces. As I've pointed out, the site in Turkey, Göbekli Tepe, that's dated back into the Ice Age, to the last Ice Age that we have, and it's evidence that there were some pretty sophisticated people living at that time, and there's not a trace of them now. And there's evidence that a great cataclysm occurred, and that all of that was wiped out, and what archaeologists think is the beginning of civilization is really kind of a regrouping, that the hunter-gatherers were the smart ones. They could survive the cataclysm, and did. And so that's where a lot of people think our civilization began, or human experience began, as hunter-gatherer. But we don't know that for sure, and it's just a very intriguing thing to me to look at the possibilities. None of that changes anything I feel about my own spiritual development, but it is, to me, a fascinating facet of the human experience, which I am a part of. But the idea that there is something beneath this thing we call life forms. When science talks about life, when did life begin? Is there life in outer space? They're talking about the form. And when I talk about life, when the metaphysician talks about life, the mystic talks about life, we're talking about the formless. We're talking about an energy that has not taken form yet. And someplace along the line, that invisible energy that we call life ignited. It came together with the material form, and that's this part of us, this vehicle that we're experiencing this planet from. But the real reality is the unseen. It's that spiritual dimension. It is so easy to wade into concepts of others and read ideas and say, yes, I agree. When I study this early civilization thing, I have no background in that whatsoever, so I have to rely on the evidence other people have found and present. So I'm going on belief. I'm not going on knowing. But when I speak of the spiritual experience, I have had an experience of moving into that deeper realm, actually being there and knowing that it is the most real thing I've ever experienced in my life. I can't pass that on because it's subjective, but I can speak from that and I can know from that. And I feel like my spiritual path at that moment moved from belief to knowing. But so much of our religious thought is based on belief. Do you believe this A, B, C, D, the set of ideas that I put out in front of you? And if you do, you're one of us. If you don't, you're not. And that is kind of like the low-hanging fruit. It's doesn't require anything other than maybe some reading and some listening and some logic that we can put into place. People believe that the world gets so evil at times that God destroys it. That's a belief. We don't know that. We don't know that God would do anything like that God is even capable of destroying. Asteroids are, but does God send asteroids? I guess if you're evil enough, God will send an asteroid, but I don't believe that. That is, my understanding of the spiritual dimension totally eliminates that type of superstition. I don't feel that God, reacts to whether or not we are making the mark. God is life, this life force, and we find that when the physical form is threatened, it comes back, and it comes back in different ways. The whole life force is very persistent. We do know that. But the reality is not what we see here. It's that thing that's pushing out through the scene, through the physical. So keeping the high watch it involves moving our awareness from this outer shell, where 99% of our awareness is, to that which is doing the living through this shell. And that's not an easy thing to do. It's so much easier to fall into levels of belief minus experience, belief without experience. And what we really want is experience. And that is something that's accessible to every one of us. Every time a mystic comes forward, every time somebody has a mystical experience, and by mystical experience I mean a person who comes to that, has a revelation that they are not the body. They are something expressing through the body. They are much more than the body. They are connected to the cosmos. They are connected in a way that is indestructible. They have this experience and they come into their religious environment, the one they probably grew up with, like a Jesus, for example. And they begin saying, your religion is missing a lot of things. Because I know what I'm talking about, because I have had the experience of a first-hand experience with God, a first-hand experience with Spirit, which, of course, that religion will say is blasphemous. You can't have that. You have to go through the priesthood. You have to go through the church. You have to go through some other avenue. You can't have a first-hand experience with God. You're not qualified. So the mystic persists and says, yes, I can, and so can you. And what you're teaching has nothing to do with the reality. It's belief. You've not had the luxury of experience. Most of religion, most of what passes as religion is based on belief, not experience. The ones that change and shake the foundations of religion are the ones who have had the experiences. They're the ones that step aside, step back from the practices, and open themselves directly to that flow of life that is in all of us. And it is difficult to get to that place. But once we touch it, we know it's real. There's no ifs, ands, and buts about it. We move from belief to knowing. is God real? There's no doubt in my mind God is real. There's a lot of doubt in my mind that the God most people believe in is real. There's a difference. Whatever we call this thing, this creative life force, this energy, this all-sustaining power that keeps pushing forth, whatever kind of name you want to give it, it is real. If you have not experienced that in a meaningful way, then you will believe that it's real. But when you do experience it, you know it's real. So keeping the high watch, to me, is carrying that knowing into all we do, and it's very easy to forget it. So let's move into this idea. Emma Curtis Hopkins is the one where I learned this term from, keeping the high watch. She was a mystic. She wrote a lot. She was a prolific writer, and she was known as the teacher of teachers back in the early mid-1800s. She was a teacher of Charles Myrtle Fillmore, the co-founders of Unity. She was a teacher of Emilie, Cady. She was an influence on most of the early New Thought movements in America. And she was actually started as a student of Mary Baker Eddy, who was the founder of religious science, or Christian Science. She was a very important individual. She had a college in a metaphysical college in Chicago, and she trained thousands of students, and was just a tremendous influence. She was a tremendous influence in my life. I first heard of her through Dr. John Rankin, who used to be the minister in Unity of Houston, Texas. He built the Golden Pyramid down there, the Unity church called the Golden Pyramid. And I don't know if Dr. Rankin is still with us or not, but I was attended one of his classes back in the late 70s, I think it was, or mid-70s. So it's been a long time, and her Emma Curtis Hopkins' book, High Mysticism, is the one that has meant the most to me. I've read some reviews from other Unity ministers that say that that's the worst book they've ever read, that it's her least important book, and my response to that is you just don't get it. You're not seeing what she's saying. You're not listening. You're not able to hear it. As I wrote a review for Amazon on the book, that she speaks to the soul. Her words in this work do not address the intellect. They address the soul. And we don't always understand what this means, but you have to lay your brain down for a little bit and read with your heart. That's the only way I can say it. You open yourself to what she's saying, and she was known for this wonderful influence of people even being in her presence would have this experience deeper insight in themselves. And when I read the book, High Mysticism, and I'm on my second copy. I've worn the first one out, although I still have it. It moves you, and you read just a little at a time, and it moves you in a way that, and I think actually you can just read the first chapter of that book, High Mysticism, and you'll get pretty much all you need from her. And others would argue with that, I'm sure. But she talks about vision, about the high watch, about keeping the high watch. And without the inner seeing, it's all belief. It's all ideas we get probably from somebody else. So the high watch, as Hopkins used the term, and I'm quoting her, concerns that swift, subtle faculty possessed by us all, whereby we look whithersoever we will, to the Deity ever beholding us, or to the dust beneath, without the aid of our physical eyes. We've all heard of the third eye. Just think of yourself, as you're going through your day, there's this inner visional sense going on all the time. It's not your thinking, it's what you're seeing. It's your inner vision. And if you will notice, that vision is focused mostly on what you're doing in your life, of what concerns your daily life, all the activities that you're involved in. That's where your vision, that's what she's calling the dust. But this Deity ever beholding us, she uses terms like this, and you have to think about them. You have to let them kind of soak in. This deity ever beholding us. There is pressing in upon us this life force. We always have its full attention. It doesn't have our full attention, but we have its full attention. If you think of that, just hold that idea that God is fully aware of me. God is fully aware of my presence. And here I am envisioning all the things that I have to do through this day, a day I will forget in about 2 days. We forget most of the things that go on in this vision, where our vision is. We forget most of this stuff. And I forget it as well. I forget like everyone else. I will never forget that moment of illumination. Never. It's a life changer. You can't go back once you have an experience with God. And that is the difficulty of taking on a body, because there is so much the body needs and so much it cries out for. And we so associate with it, it becomes us. It's our identity. Our whole identity is centered on the body. And so to us, the high watch becomes reading about God, reading books that inspire us, rather than going directly to that source and experiencing that deeper level. But that's what we can do and actually must do at some point. Well, we don't have to do it. But if we want to put this whole experience in context, then we touch this deeper reality, this changeless reality. We begin to understand our earthly experience a lot better. There's a great part of humanity that thinks we're here to learn lessons, and I have said many times I don't think that's true. That which we are at the deepest level doesn't need to learn lessons. It has it. It has it all. That's what I learned. There's a level of me that is so far beyond anything I could create or fix. It's not worth mentioning. That which we are looking for is already here. It's already present, already complete. And that's a difficult thing to grasp intellectually. We can't grasp it intellectually because we're trying always to improve ourselves. We're trying to improve ourselves because we feel like there's something missing. And there is. We're living life from an intellectual level. And we are to move to that intuitive level where we are open directly to that live wire of God. That spirit that is our very essence. A person like Jesus has that, and he comes out and he, in a sense, tries to correct people who are going down the religious belief road, saying there's a lot more to this. It's not about laws. It's not about keeping the Sabbath. It's not about whether you wash your hands before you eat. It's not what goes into your mouth, it's what comes out. He's understanding that there is a level of experience that is accessible to everybody. Nobody's greater than anyone else in this regard. We talk about this wonderful concept of unity, as if we're all one, but we don't go to that place of oneness. We love to read about it, and we love to sing about it. But when you touch that place in yourself, you realize it's the same energy that powers every single person, every other form of life. It's omnipresent. It's God. Creative life force. Name it whatever you like, whatever feels best to you. She says something very important here that I have quoted before. For it is primarily what we most see and not what we most think that constitutes our presence, power, and history. And again, seeing is not the physical eye, it's what we are seeing in our consciousness, moment by moment. That's why I've said unity is not a positive thinking movement, although I think many unity people think it is. Our thinking, the way we think, is an effect. When you when your inner vision sees the infinite within yourself, when you touch that mystical realm within yourself, your thinking follows. You do not have to change it. You don't have to watch your thoughts any more than when you're sitting up on top of a mountain, as I'm sure all of you have done, that you have to generate some kind of feelings of awe. I've got to be positive as I'm sitting here looking at this vast beauty. I've got to feel awe, so I try to generate awe. You don't even have to do that. It's just a natural response to being there, to being in that place, and that's what we lack. We're not in that place, and so we try to generate a positive life. We try to build a self-image that works on this planet, and it's a composite of ideas, a composite of beliefs. It's removed from the actual experience. You learn more in 5 seconds of a direct experience with God than you learn in 50 years of studying about God. You will never get to heaven through religion. I hate to be the breaker of bad news, but we've been taught that. And because we don't know the nature of spirit, because we've never touched our toe into it, we believe that. We believe there's something that we must do to improve ourselves so we'll be acceptable when we die. We'll be acceptable to God. We'll make it through the pearly gates. That we have to earn something we already are. And we don't. We don't have to earn anything. It's about waking up. It's about where our inner vision is. It is primarily what we most see with this inner eye, and not what we most think that constitutes our presence, power, and history. Look at your life as it's going and just connect that with what you're seeing all day long. How you're using your inner vision. And there's no separation. It's one and the same. Our life reflects that. So does that mean we have to change our vision? No. It means that we start seeing in a new way. And you can't train yourself to do that. You go on top of the mountain, and it happens. You make the commitment to experience that deeper level of reality in yourself. And it opens your mind responds. Your intellect responds to what your intuition is putting on the table. It's what we just went through with the Christmas story. Joseph is not involved, the intellect, in this inner birth, this inner awakening. It's Mary, the soul, the intuition. This is where the Immaculate Conception occurs. It occurs in the depths of our being. That's why we emphasize meditation. Go within yourself, lay down everything, your beliefs, everything. Open yourself as much as you possibly can to this presence. Your busy mind will turn up. Stop it, let it go, come back. Doesn't happen today, get up, go about your business, do it tomorrow. Keep working with it until you make that passage. You pass from this world. Touch that place in yourself where you're no longer a believer, you're a knower. You're a seer. You're a direct experiencer. And then what you most see, your seeing faculty changes because you see now you're something much greater than you thought. I can't just stop all of my negative thinking. I can't stop all of my perceptions of the world that are not real favorable. I can't just instantly drop that. But what I can know is from my experience, nothing I can do, I can't screw it up. I can't think so bad, so negatively that I mess up my soul, that I mess up something at the deepest level of my being. I can't do that because I'm indestructible. And I'm saying that very far from any egotistical type of statement. We're all spiritual beings. And so we touch that level of ourselves. It doesn't matter, again, how far out in the far country we go, like the prodigal son. The home is always there. And that is a part of this keeping the high watch is, okay, I don't feel one with God today. I don't feel so good today. Maybe I get angry. Maybe I go down a road that I despise myself for doing. But I'm not destroying myself. I'm not harming that which I am at the deepest level. This is a way to keep the high watch. It's a way to keep focused on nothing I can do can alter what I am at the deepest level. The only question is, how much of that am I letting out? Because that's where my peace is. That's where my understanding of life comes from, is knowing that groundedness, that spiritual dimension. That's what keeps me sane. That's what makes me know that I'm just here temporarily in this body. This is not me. No matter how far down the road I go, I can't hurt my soul. And I know that if that was taught, that it would destroy a lot of religions, because many bank on that. That you are born in sin, you're a sinner unless you embrace my set of beliefs, my doctrine of faith. You're not going to make it. Absolutely false. There's no man-made religious system that will get you where you want to go. It may make you feel okay, make you feel better. And I've seen this happen. People feel like they've totally messed up their lives, and they find Jesus. And they hear that Jesus loves them no matter how raunchy they are. And there's a lot of peace in that. How wonderful that is. I'm no good, but Jesus loves me. So I break down emotionally. It's an emotional experience. And I feel really good that Jesus loves me even though I'm a terrible sinner. But Jesus never didn't love you. God never didn't love you. You put a black spot on yourself where your vision is in a very dark place, perhaps. But it doesn't matter how dark that place is. It doesn't change what you are at the deepest level. But you will never find what you're looking for in religion. You'll only find it in yourself. And you'll find it any place on this planet that you go where you have that awareness. It can be in the middle of a busy city. It can be in the quiet of your office. It can be in a church. It can be while you're walking down the street. It doesn't matter. God is omnipresent. Everywhere present equally at the same time. Wherever I am, God is. That's how we close our service every Sunday. Keeping the high watch is holding fast to the truth that there is but one presence, one power at work in our life. And again, this is a concept for most of us. We want to move from that belief into the knowing. And that's not a study thing. It's a receptivity thing. You don't have to study for years to touch the omnipresence of God, because it's you. It's your being. And there's that level in you that when you touch it, suddenly you know that you are indestructible. You are an eternal being. And there has been nothing that you've had to learn to make that happen. You have to actually unlearn. Let go. Our only means of finding inner peace in an ever-changing world, that's touching that one presence, one power. Keeping the high watch is holding fast to the truth that there is but one presence and one power at work in our life, our only means of finding inner peace in an ever-changing world. Keeping the high watch is not standing on tiptoes, straining to see some great good finally appearing on the distant horizon. And I believe that is what most people on some call it religious path, some call it spiritual path. I don't care what you call it. I think that's where most people are. They're looking to something that's going to happen in the future. I'm going to become something more tomorrow than I am today. Our society is going to become something more tomorrow than it is today. Something has to happen. Somebody's going to come out of the clouds. and bless us all. And we're going to stop fighting, or all of the evil people in the world are going to be destroyed. All of us good people, and that'll be you and I, of course, will be left over. But something in the future is going to happen to make life better. But God, I do not believe, I should say I know, does not see it that way. How could God become better? If God could become better, we better stop calling God God, because that is should be about as good as it gets. What is going to improve? What would bring me closer to omnipresence than I could be right now? It's all perception. It's all belief. It's my vision. If I am looking to the future for something I don't have now, I'm not keeping the high watch. If I understand that all that I ever need at the spiritual level, I have access to at this very moment, that's keeping the high watch. And I have to keep reminding myself of that as I go through my day. It's a process of closing our outer eyes for a time and allowing the illumination of the soul to make itself known. And again, a lot of us, I think, we close our eyes to become still and think, I've got to learn something. I don't know what I'm looking for. So I search. And what are you searching for? When you're trying to have an experience with God, you're searching for a concept. And you have to be willing to say, just like you're at the altar, lay this down at the altar. I don't know what I'm looking for. But that which I'm looking for knows how to find me, knows where I am, and knows how to connect, knows how to rise in my awareness, knows how to make me know its presence. The Father and I are one. God and I are one. It knows all the mechanics of that. I don't have to learn it. I have to be open to it. They shall all be taught by God. This is Jesus quoting the Psalms. That's the bottom line. And when does that teaching start? It's right now. It's any time. Take all the knowledge you think you have about God, put it aside, and say, I'm ready to learn. I'm ready to experience firsthand. All right? Any more subjects, let me know, and I'll confuse you just as much with those as I did with this one. So thanks for coming out. See you next week. And have a Happy New Year.